mainstream media. But let's continue. So this talks about the January 6th insurrection case. In the 2 months between Election Day in 2020 and January 6, 2021, Trump mounted a wide-ranging campaign to subvert Joe Biden's victory in the presidential election. Trump and his advisors spread false information about voter fraud, urged Republican state officials to undermine the results in states that Biden won, assembled false slates of electors, and pressured Mike Pence, the vice president, to unilaterally toss out the legitimate results. The effort culminated on January 6th when a mob of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol and disrupted the peaceful transfer of power. Federal prosecutors led by special counsel Jack Smith have charged Trump with 4 federal crimes stemming from his attempts to derail the transfer of power. Now, now when you look at this, it's always 2 sides to every story. You can look at this in 2 different ways. Now, let's say that there was no voter fraud whatsoever, right? And Trump was spreading false information. Like, let's say that is true. Then is there a strong case for, say, him inciting an insurrection? Because now I don't remember all the specifics of that day. Now, I do remember the mob storming the Capitol. I do remember all that. But the one thing I remember Trump was saying that he tweeted out to his followers was like peaceful protest. Or so, like it wasn't like he was saying "fuck it all up," right? Drag them out into the street and hang them up, rip their balls off, behead them. And so what I'm saying is it really a crime to spread false information on the basis that you happen to believe it based on evidence that was presented to you, or based on what you might think or something might have happened to make you think but believe that? And see, that's again, we're looking at it from the perspective of there was no voter fraud. My question is it a crime to say it, to believe that there was, and to try to make efforts to let it be known? Because the thing is, if there was significant voter fraud and you believe that, why wouldn't you try to have the election overturned? And so that's why I question if there isn't an argument to say that he has a right to make that move, because again, why wouldn't you? If you believe that's the case, why wouldn't you? Now, you might be wrong, but I think in that scenario, the key is how much did you instigate the escalation of chaos in that situation? Because if you say, well, there was voter fraud, they stole the election, and your supporters get rowdy over it, how much of that is your fault in terms of, because again, if you believe it, you should say it. But I think you're crossing the line when you say drag them out, kick the doors in, drag them out, slit the throats, tear it all down. To me, that's when you're crossing that line. But let's look at it from the other side. What if there was voter fraud? And see, this is why this situation is scary to me. Because when you look at it from the other perspective, let's say there was voter fraud, and then you look at all that is happening here, where Trump is pleading and telling the world there was voter fraud, overturn the elect, and nobody of significance is listening. Because this is the scenario that we all should hope is not the case. I hope that this is not what is happening here. So let's continue. Status, indictment. So it says status, indictment, trial, verdict, appeal, dropped. Man, he has a lot of shit on his plate right now. So it says Smith's January 6th investigation followed the work of the House Select Committee on the January 6th attack, which voted in December 2022 to refer Trump, along with lawyer John Eastman, to the Justice Department for prosecution. A Washington grand jury met for months and heard testimony from many former Trump aides and officials in the Trump White House, including Pence. On August 1st, 2023, the grand jury approved an indictment against Trump, charging him with an extraordinary conspiracy that threatened to disenfranchise millions of Americans. So this is a scary situation to me, because if he is right, you got to understand how bad this is. You have to understand how bad and wicked this is. But if he's wrong, like I said before, I only question, did he really do enough to warrant this kind of reaction? So it says charges. Trump has been charged with 4 crimes in the investigation. 2 relate to the disruption of Congress certification of the electoral vote on January 6th. 1 alleges a scheme to defraud the United States through a sustained effort to impede the collection, counting, and certification of votes in the 2020 election. And the 4th charge accuses Trump of a conspiracy to deprive citizens of a right secured under federal law, specifically the right to vote and to have one's vote counted. And the thing is, the reason why I say this is scary is that, hold on, give me 1 second. That's what that damn sound. I kept hearing a beep. But the reason why I say this is scary to me is that what this is basically saying is that if you even come forward and imply, insinuate that there was voter fraud, like, again, let's say that there was voter fraud, that there's a shadow government rigging the elections and still and putting in their puppet politicians, right? Like just conspiracy tinfoil hat mode. If what this is basically saying, if you're in a prominent position like Trump and you know this is happening and you come forward, this is what you have to deal with. Because just by you insinuating that this is occurring, they're going to come right after you. I mean, obviously, but it's like the weight in which they can come after you just based off you saying. So it's like, what can you do? If they did take let's say they did, what could you realistically do when they can just say, oh, you're spreading false information, we're going to charge you with this and that. We're going to charge you with 1 felony count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, right? 1 felony count of conspiracy against rights under, like that. That's what's worrying about it, is that if that's what's happening, you even coming forward and saying it's happening is like turning a gun to your own head. That's very worrying. And so let's look at strengths of the case. Trump's effort to subvert the election were extensive, well documented, and largely in public view. He and his allies spread lies about voter fraud and stoked the protests that led to the January 6th attack. Now, I think that's true, but again, if he believes it, then how much of a crime can you really say that it is? That's how I would look at it. Many of the top aides in Trump's administration testified to the grand jury, giving investigators remarkable insight into what was happening privately in Trump's orbit during the critical 2-month period, and perhaps providing important evidence about Trump's state of mind. Pence, who resisted Trump's pressure to try to annul the election results on January 6th, was the most notable witness. Others included Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, his White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, his national security advisor, Robert O'Brien, and his senior policy advisor, Stephen Miller. So his gang snitched on him basically. But my thing is just this: what were the specifics of what they were saying? They're saying that giving investigators remarkable insight into what was happening privately in Trump's orbit during the critical 2-month period, and perhaps providing important evidence about Trump's state of mind. But see, the thing about this is that, like I said, what are they specifically telling them? Are they telling them that Trump knew this was bullshit, but he was like, we have to force this situation? Because if you're in the inner circle, and that means you can see what Trump is seeing, and you can see how, like, the flow of information. So what did he see? What was happening around him to make him believe there was voter fraud? Because I think this is very important, because if his inner circle are telling investigators that there was really no reason for him to believe this, that it seemed to me that he was just pulling this out of his ass because he was butthurt that he lost, then that's going to strengthen the case against him. But again, what if you're in the inner circle, what did he see that make him believe this? Because the thing is, if he is seeing things and information is coming to him that there could be voter fraud, then that brings the argument, why wouldn't he say something? If he believes it, why wouldn't he? So this says weaknesses of the case. Trump may argue that his statements about the 2020 election were protected by the First Amendment, or that in challenging the election, he was merely relying on the advice of lawyers. That's I don't know. Trump do better than that. But so this one says, a president seeking to impede the peaceful transfer of power is unprecedented in American history, and the attempt to hold him legally accountable is similarly unprecedented. Some of the legal theories that prosecutors may rely on, like applying the conspiracy against rights statute to the context here, may raise novel issues that have rarely been tested in court. Yeah, because like they said before, this is something that we've never seen before. A president being charged like this, or a former president being charged like this. So and like they say right here, conspiracy against rights. Like, how are you going to argue for that against what I was talking about earlier? If he believed it, then why wouldn't he say? Like, to me, it's that simple. If he really believed it, why wouldn't he say something? But if you say something, then all these charges come against you, and how is that fair? Okay, who could pardon him? All right, we're gonna skip over this. This article, goddamn, this is well done. Politico. Let me bookmark this. Look at this. This is fancy. They got the whole Trump's legal team, key players. God damn. Okay. So let's go into the Georgia election interference case. Trump's efforts to overturn his loss in the 2020 election were perhaps most aggressive in the state of Georgia. Multiple recounts confirmed that President Joe Biden narrowly prevailed in the race for the state's 16 electoral votes. But Trump and his allies spread lies about voter fraud, urged Georgia officials and state lawmakers to reverse Biden's win, and plotted to send fake electors to Washington. On January 2nd, 2021, Trump called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and urged him to find 11,780 votes, the number needed to overcome Biden's victory. Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis charged Trump and 18 of his allies for these efforts, alleging a wide-ranging criminal enterprise. So I saw some, okay, now just to counter this, let's play devil's advocate. There's a whole documentary called, I think, 2,000 Mules or something like that, where it's showing video evidence of people stuffing ballots, or stuffing like ballot boxes, like people on bicycles pulling up and just dumping, like one individual just dumping votes into these I guess the ballot boxes and whatnot. And it's a pretty interesting documentary. Again, I think it's called 2,000 Mules. But how do I know if it's true or not? What if those same guys were just stuffing the ballot boxes with Trump votes, right? But it's an interesting documentary. I think I'm gonna go back and look at it again soon too, though. Now that all this is kind of flared up. But I also saw somebody talking about this on the Joe Rogan podcast. I forgot the specifics of like the guy's background, but you know, he's dug deep into these charges and whatnot. And he was talking about this situation exactly. Trump called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and urged him to find 11,780 votes, the number needed. And so the way he explained it on the Joe Rogan podcast was that Trump received information that there was voter fraud. And so he called this guy and was like, find the voter fraud. Find it. Like he put I know it, find it. And so look at how this is worded, right? Trump called Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and urged him to find. Now look, it says, quote, that they took one word. They took one word out of everything that he said to this guy and use that as the basis of this argument for this article. As impressed with this article as I am, I do think that it's probably biased against Trump, because look at that. They took one fine, right? Because I feel like they're using the word to sort of strengthen their argument. Like they're taking the word and then forming the argument around it. But from the way that guy described it on the Joe Rogan podcast was that it was like Trump received the information of voter fraud and he called Brad Raffensperger and said, I know it. I received the information that is there. Find it. So it's like, again, if you believe it, if you believe there's fraud, why wouldn't you say something about it? But just by saying it, you see, and that's why this situation is so iffy to me. So status, Willis opened a criminal investigation in February 2021. She summoned many of Trump's top allies before a so-called special grand jury, which had the power to investigate crimes but not to approve criminal charges. In the summer of 2023, Willis presented her evidence to a regular grand jury, which approved the 98-page indictment of 90-page. Okay. So it says charges: 1 count of violating the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, 3 counts of solicitation of violation of oath by public officer, 1 count of conspiracy to commit impersonating a public officer, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit forgery in the first degree, 2 counts of false statements and writings, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit false statements and writings, 1 count of filing false documents, 1 count of conspiracy to commit filing false documents. The indictment accuses 19 named defendants of criminal wrongdoing and contains a total of 41 state law felony charges. 13 of those felonies are leveled against Trump. The most serious is an alleged violation of the state's Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, commonly known as RICO. Damn, he got a RICO charge? Shit. That law allows prosecutors to package together disparate crimes if those crimes advance a single corrupt enterprise. So it says, strength of the case. Trump's efforts to undo the Georgia results were based on blatant falsehoods and were largely conducted out in the open. His phone call to Raffensperger was recorded. So blatant falsehoods, something that I would have to investigate further. Because again, it's like everything here is basically saying that any information that he got to believe this is false. And I naturally just have to question that. Okay, out of 20 pieces of information that he received, and I'm just throwing out a number, I would be surprised as if every single thing was false. Maybe 10, maybe 15, but that's where I would be suspicious, because for every charge here, they're saying that anything that he thought, anything that might have had him believe that there was voter fraud was absolutely false. And I have a hard time believing that. 8 Republican activists who falsely claim to be the state's presidential electors for Trump have taken immunity deals and have agreed to cooperate with Willis. 8 Republican activists who falsely claim to be the state's presidential electors for Trump have taken. Now, see, that sounds very strong against him. But then it's like, did they do it in cooperation with him, or did they do this independently? That's what I would. If I had to question it, that's what I would throw out there. But if they did it in connection with him, he approved it or he told them to do that, that's bad. That's bad. Even if you're in a situation like this, like let's say there was voter fraud, you don't want to use underhanded tactics to prove it or to get things to swing your way, because that's only going to be used as ammunition against you later. Weaknesses of the case. A local prosecutor charging a former president with election interference is unprecedented in American history. Trump may claim he is immune from being prosecuted for actions he took while he was still president. Trump might argue that his statements about the Georgia results are protected by the First Amendment, or that he lacked criminal intent because he genuinely believed he won the election. So that's exactly what I've been saying this entire time. He lacked criminal intent because he genuinely believed he won the election. If he believed it, then why can't he say that there was voter fraud, that he saw evidence or believed he had reason to believe that there was voter fraud? That's the main thing with me. That's the main thing. And so here they're showing the prosecutor, Fannie Willis. I think she's also the prosecutor in the Young Thug YSL case. You know what? This might be the, I don't know how this whole legal thing works, but what if this is a big enough of a distraction to where Young Thug might get off? But I digress. Okay, and so it goes on to talk about the classified documents case and the hush money. Now, the hush money one, that's just, dude, throw that in the garbage. Like, to me, that just makes the whole situation look even more desperate, right? That's come on. Are we gonna go to goddamn Bill Clinton getting a blowjob from Monica Lewinsky? Are we gonna go back to that? And right, like, dude, come on, like little sex bullshit, sex scandals. That's weak. That's weak shit. But the classified documents, Georgia election interference, all that, pretty serious business. But we'll stop there. But it's like I said before, man. If Trump legitimately broke the law and had malicious intent, if his attitude was, hey, fuck the system, I'm taking it, then he deserves everything that's coming his way. But the main things that bother me, and it all stems from me connecting those earlier dots from, again, how the mainstream media and the powers that be just seem to be collectively against him. You know, I take that, and then we look now. The thing that worries me the most is that it seems like you can't even say or come forward and say that you believe that there was voter fraud, because now instantly all of this is gonna come again. All these problems come raining down on you, and it's like, if he did it, fuck him. But if he didn't, damn. Because how do you win against that? How do you win in a situation where coming forward to talk about potential fraud is lining you up for this kind of heat? It's very, very worrying to me. But, you know, we'll see. Maybe the charges will drop. Maybe some will stick. It seems like a lot of people believe that I'm putting my tinfoil hat back on. The shadow government, the elites, all this is an attempt to get in the way of him potentially becoming president again. And so perhaps they feel so threatened by this that they're like, fuck it, we're charging the cannons up and we're gonna take we got to take this guy out, because